Great. Good morning, everyone. I think we can start. So we wanted to have just a quick session with y'all to talk about reviews. So far, you've been working on Uno. I hope you've been having a good time, having some fun figuring out uh, how to make Python do cool and interesting things. Um, Whenever you're working on a project, it's important to get feedback regularly, and we do that at We Can Code using peer-to-peer reviews. Um, I wanted to give you just a quick demo of how to go about a review and also how the reviews are going to work. Let me just share my screen. Great. So you would have noticed on the instruction sheet for Uno, at the bottom there's the section Review Guidelines. We want to know about the completeness, code style, design, and experience of your projects. And your task is to evaluate each other's work. So the way that we're going to do that for this particular round of reviews, you will receive a link to a Google form, this Google form, in fact. We're just going to have a quick run through it now. Essentially, at the beginning, it links to a spreadsheet. It looks like this. So this is where you'll find your review allocations. Say that's me. That means I'm reviewing this person and they're reviewing me. So reviews are mutual. Here's a link to my repository. Here's a link to their repository. Now I've already gone and added all of you to each other's repos as reporters. That means you can see each other's work. So I'm going to grab this person's link. I'm going to go ahead and clone their repository. Let's have a look and see how this person approached the problem. Cool. So the very first step to doing a review is to have their work on your machine so that you can look at it, right? I have now cloned my review partner's work. I get to see that they've got a README. Oh, this is the default GitLab README. Okay, cool. And they've written some Python here. Now, an unstructured review is a bit difficult to do. I might have to look at this code and think, what's going on here? What kind of feedback do I have to give this person? So use the form to help understand what you should be doing. If we look at the form, the first question is, were you able to play a complete game of Uno? So let's try running this person's code. Python uno.py. Player 1 cards. Okay, so here's my cards, and player 2 is the computer, I presume. I'm going to play 5 yellow, and it quit immediately. Okay, so I wasn't able to play a complete game of Uno just yet. Is the deck correct? Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Well, they've already got this line of code here, so let's see. It's got 52 cards in it. So it's not quite the right deck of cards just yet. But you see how I'm going through the code, and I'm checking just each of these questions. They're usually yes or no questions. And it's helping me understand what I should be looking at in the code. That's kind of the intended experience of a review. Now, if I've got a question, like maybe I don't really understand what these numbers are, for example, you should matrix the person that you're reviewing or find them in person and have a discussion. The point of a review isn't just that your code gets sent off into the void and someone reviews you and then you get the review results and you never had a conversation with them. It could work that way, but we would prefer for you to sort of tally your questions together and have just an open discussion with them about your approaches and how they differ and what you can learn from each other. Um, but yes, for my complete review, I would go through all these questions, have a look at the code, answer the question, and then at the end, there's just uh, these text boxes for like whatever you'd like to elaborate on or whatever feedback you'd like to give us about this project. Um, all these will be shared with the person you're reviewing. Keep that in mind. And by the time you get to the end, you'll have plenty of stuff to mention in here. Don't worry about that. Um, yeah, so the idea is just that you get to look at someone else's code. Maybe they've got some cool stuff in their approach that you can adopt in yours. That's totally fine as long as you're not copy pasting the code. It's fine. Um, yeah, I think it's a pretty simple process actually. So um, we'll be sending out the link to this form now, and then you can get started. Now, not everyone is on this spreadsheet. That's because only around 230 of you had anything submitted for Uno when I was doing these review allocations. We're going to be doing these reviews again um, at the beginning of next week. So um, if you haven't submitted Uno yet, please make an Uno repository, get started working, and remember that it's a really good idea to be pushing code all the time in small commits. So if I go to your GitLab, I should see that you're working on Uno and that you're pushing code every day if you're working on Uno. And yeah, I guess I can take questions on reviews. There really isn't all that much to it. It's a process that you'll get very used to, I think. And I find reviews quite enjoyable. They were kind of my favorite part of being a student when I was a student. Just being able to talk to people about code is really nice. Um, yeah, if we have any questions, I'm all ears.
Fen, can you hear me? Fen,
Um, I have received a question that says, how do the peer reviews work? Okay, I guess I'll run through it again quickly. So the idea is that we'll let you know who you should be reviewing, and I'm about to send out the link to the form that has the link to the spreadsheet. The process will get better as we refine our new review system. Um, you can clone their code because I've given everyone access and have a look through it, answer the questions on the form one by one. And then that person will also be cloning your code and answering those questions about you. What we'll do is we will send you their review, probably by matrix. And then you can have a look at everything that they observed about your code and learn from it what you can. Hopefully, they put some really useful stuff in those last two questions of just like general feedback. Um, that's pretty much it. That's sort of all there is to reviews. You'll be doing these in industry, by the way. Code very rarely makes it to production without going through multiple layers of code review. So it's a good thing to be really used to and to really learn to enjoy.
hear me? Can you hear me, Fen? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, um, there's no questions yet, but we are on the lookout. I'd just like to add something. Um, you guys will be doing reviews almost on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So it's and reviews are standard across industry as Fen mentioned. Uh, Now, just to state that reviews are not meant to go and bash the next person and be like, Fen, that code that you wrote there is quite horrible. Why would you do that? Don't ever do that again. No, please do not use that approach. Um, if Fen found something wrong with my code, Fen would be like, that's an interesting approach. Can we dissect it? Let's dissect it. And then Fen would probably be like, okay, I think this would be the best approach. This is how you could best approach this one. And you have about like 15 lines of code to 10. This is how maybe you could have written it more effectively with 2 lines of code or 3 lines of code. And you try to make that person understand. You don't just go boom, 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 and try to push the next person. Reviews are a learning process for both parties, right? For both parties, not sometimes it does become a one-way street where maybe I did not understand the learning outcomes of a project and I did something and maybe I did not do it to the full extent that it should be done. And then Fen will be like, okay, okay, maybe let's sit down, let me make you understand exactly what was supposed to be done and then maybe we can have a session and then we can try to go over it again, right? So essentially, that's the mindset you should have when approaching these reviews. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the approach that you should have. Um, yeah, yeah, that was 2 cents that I needed to end.
I absolutely agree with everything. Actually, you mentioned that you shouldn't bash the person that you're reviewing. I would actually expand that. If you see a bit of code that you're reviewing that you don't understand, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that the code is wrong. Um, that's maybe not the right jump to make. Um, I remember when I was a student, I've been writing Python for almost 20 years, and I found the Python projects a little trivial. Uh, and the reviews were always funny because people would criticize my code and say, oh, it's broken like this and broken like this, and you did this wrong. And their critique of my code would be incorrect. Um, so it, be warned that you may get incorrect information from the person that's reviewing you. Also, you really don't want to be the person that is confidently giving this information to the person you're reviewing. So it's good now to start learning about tentative language. So in the professional world, sometimes we really believe something or we really feel like, oh, that code must be broken or it mustn't work. Um, but you bring it up sort of like, hey, I didn't really understand this code. Can we discuss it? Can we try testing it? Because I feel like it doesn't work, but I'm not, I'm like 99% sure, but 99% isn't 100%, right? Um, the person that you're reviewing might be a better coder than you, might. And that's fine. That's part of the review process, and that also happens in the industry. So, yeah, good times. One of the main things that you learn from reviews is how to talk to people, like a very broad spectrum of people. Because uh, you would have realized by now that We Think Code is a very interesting place. Um, our students are a very weird bunch of people, a very diverse bunch of people. Um, and we're doing these review allocations almost completely randomly, which means that throughout the 16 months, you will probably review everyone. Um, and I guess it can be a little bit difficult to communicate clearly when you're doing a review, so as to not offend them or to be clear about a very technical point, stuff like this. Um, Please use reviews to refine your communication skills as well as just your programming. It would be a shame for you to leave Leaving Code without one of its core learning outcomes. Great. Any other questions?
So far, yeah, let's just wait and see. But I have a question, Fen, a quick one.
Yes.
Uh, since we haven't really touched on the tests at this point in time, you know how it usually happens when you're like, oh, test pass, reviews over. I don't know. Will we have another session for that, or is that something we'd like to add here? But they haven't been exposed to those yet.
So, um, basically, what Pusong is talking about is that so far you've been testing your code probably just by running it. Um, you just try whatever function you wrote or whatever program you wrote to see if it works correctly. But it turns out that that takes a lot of time. And it's easy to sort of get lazy with it and only check a couple of things and go, oh, yeah, it works, when it might actually not work. So, as programmers, we invented a way for code to test other code. And that's called automated testing. And it's really important in software engineering because remember, software development is developing software, but it's also an engineering discipline. And in engineering, we double check everything. Um, that's kind of the name of the game of engineering. So in the industry, you're going to be encountering a lot of automated testing, and it is a core part of our curriculum. It's not one that we've introduced you to yet, because I want you to have some fun first before I give you the better stuff. Um, but next week, we will be exploring testing and test-driven development in far more detail. For now, do what makes sense to you. Um, Also, I see we got another question. Uh, Eli asks, should we be adding comments in the code? Most people will tell you yes. Um, Commented code is better than uncommented code. I don't really comment my code, and I'll explain why. There is a way to write code. Every problem has a way to be written such that the code is obvious. And the main thing that you need to explain is sort of the larger architectural decisions rather than the line level stuff. Also, if you're using variable and function names to their fullest extent, they're basically like comments already. So I'm not going to look at a piece of code and say, oh, it doesn't have comments, it must be bad. I personally don't believe that's the case. Um, I do think that wherever you've written a bit of code that's slightly unintuitive, you should add a comment. Um, yeah, it's sort of it's to your discretion. It's one kind of documentation, and ideally, you've got like a holistic documentation strategy for your code. That's something that'll develop with time. Um, okay, I have another question here. What happens if reviews are missed? Is there a deadline for reviews? So these reviews, I'd really appreciate it if y'all could have them done, if not today, tomorrow, just for the sake of timing everything and making sure you've got enough time from your review till Monday to incorporate that feedback for when we do the second round of reviews. Um, so, what happens if you miss a review? Actually, what's probably going to happen is that if you miss reviews, we will block you from continuing to work until you finish them. Um, it is it is important to finish your reviews because people rely on the feedback that you give to learn. Um, One of the things that you're learning at We Think Code is responsibility, one of our core principles. You are responsible for completing this in a timely manner. Okay, another question. Is the UNO project going to affect our yearly mark? Yes. Do you look at patterns of individual progress? What else would we be looking at? Just a question. Um, um, so, okay, some folks are worried about percentages and like exact numbers and
Yes.
um, I would advise monitoring your performance and maybe categorizing or measuring your performance or whatever. That's our job. Please let us worry about it. Um, your job is just to code, just to have fun, just learn stuff. Whatever tracking we do, it's to make sure that we understand how to help you best. And also, we understand what parts of programming you like so that we know what sponsor to place you with. Um, it's that sort of thing. I really wouldn't worry too much about numbers or scores or anything like that. That's not your job.
One other thing I can help Fen, um, you will be tempted, but please do not do it. Okay. Please do not review someone's code without their presence. All right. Please make sure that they are there. So it's either you're like, hey, let's schedule a meet, a Google Meets, and let's do a review. Or you can be like, hey, this is where I'm sitting. Let's come together and sit on my PC or your PC, and then let's do the review. Please do not review the next person without their presence. That's very important. All right. Um, so that you don't make any judgment by yourself. You just make sure that they're there so that they can explain their processes and all of that, so that everything's clear between the two people, so that you can review the next things very fair. So please.
Absolutely. So, Busang mentioned Google Meet. I don't think we've discussed Google Meet. Um, if any of you have worked an office job before, then you might have scheduled something like a Google Meet. This is a skill that you will probably pick up as a student. Hopefully, you'll pick it up. Um, if you want to review someone, you can schedule a Google Meet with them, um, and you can Google how to do that. Um, so, okay, we have a question from Michael. For someone with less experience in coding, how would you recommend we tackle the UNO project? As you said, it does affect our year mark. Um, so, okay, I can't get into technical details here as much as I'd love to. Um, I would say just do your best. Um, this project is meant to surprise you in terms of how much you're able to do. Um, I don't think that anyone should be at a point at this point where they can't submit anything. Like, you can get most features of Uno. Um, it's just a matter of putting in the effort, really. So, another question from Quinn. Plagiarism, how is it assessed? Is it necessary that our codes are completely different? I'm not going to tell you the exact methodology that we use for assessing plagiarism. I am going to tell you that we consider it cheating if you submit code you don't understand. Beyond that, it's your judgment. If it's like you're just making code different for the sake of being different, why bother? That's silly. Um, but also, if you're just copy pasting giant chunks of code that you don't understand and that are kind of a specific implementation and that don't really work with the rest of your code, and you're not learning, and that's a concern for us. So, okay, so it looks like some folks are just coming in now and missed me sort of rushing over the Google form. So I'm just quickly going to have a look at the form one more time and show y'all what it looks like. Again, at the conclusion of this meeting, we will be sending you the link to this form so that we can all get started with the reviews. So this is the Google form that we'll be sending you. It includes a link to the spreadsheet where you'll see who you're allocated to review. And then you can fill out all of these questions. And the point of these questions is that they lend structure to your review. They'll help you understand what to look for and how to test it. Yeah. So this is your accompanying document in terms of how to do the review. You'll see that these questions line up relatively closely with.
Then your screen is not showing. It's just dock screen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, that is interesting. I guess it must be the network.
yes, probably is.
Let's try restarting the screen share. Um, but we have another question. Is it possible to ask code specific questions? Not to me, but to your review partner. Yes. Um, please, when you're reviewing, you should be talking about the details of your implementation. Busang, is my screen share cooperating yet?
Yes, and you are currently sharing the form.
Okay, cool, great. So, um, yeah, so this is the form. Um, here's the questions. They lend structure. I've mentioned all. Yes, cool. It follows pretty closely the structure of what you saw in the curriculum. 101 photos. Uno. Cool. So at the bottom of your Uno instructions, there was this review guidelines. So it's got like, does the game run? Which of the listed features work properly? And then the questions on the form are like, were you able to play a complete game of Uno? Is the Uno deck correct? Does it have all 108 cards as specified? Like, it's asking the same questions that this document was suggesting. So don't complain. We did let you know that this would happen. um, cool. Oh, so asking code specific questions right now. Well, if we have any other questions about reviews and about how to do reviews, I think I'll prioritize those. Um, actually, you know what? As tempting as it is for me, I don't think I'm going to give you any specifics on how to do the project right now because I actually hinted at most of my advice for this in the curriculum content. Um, like on the curriculum, I mention separateness quite a lot. I suggest like, hey, can you do just the function that takes that lets the user select a card, regardless of the rest of the game. Um, and then I also talk about how, oh, did you keep the user interface logic and the game logic completely separate from one another? Um, separateness is really, really important because as soon as two things overlap, the size of the code just goes exponential. Um, I don't know why that is. It's because of some sort of underlying property of how logic works and how the universe works, that if you structure your code wrong, it gets bigger. Um, no. So, okay, I'll read the question. Agnes asks, so I'm a beginner. Jumping from Hello World to Uno is a bit challenging because there's a lot of information to digest in just a week. I wanted to know if the structure of the curriculum is going to go on like this for the next 15 months. No. Um, we will not be introducing an entire programming language in one project for the remainder of the 15 months. This project is it's a show-off project. You're meant to show off everything you already know. Um, cool. Um, if you can't reach the person who needs to review you, that is something for us to handle on their part. Um, please don't worry too much about it. Try and reach out to them through the normal professional channels, through Matrix, through email. You do not have to reach out to them through their personal particulars. You don't have to try phoning them or anything like that. Um, so yeah, just allow us to take care of it. Unfortunately, you probably won't uh, get get reviewed at that time. Um, but remember, every project has a review cycle, maybe even multiple review cycles. So hopefully, you'll get another chance
Just
to get a review.
just on
Yes.
that, Finn, if they can't reach the person that needs to review, um, just be patient. Sometimes people might get a bit impatient, like, hey, you need to review me now, and then you get impatient, then you like this person does not want to review me. So you need patience. I'd suggest you give it like a day or two and be like, okay, cool, let me be patient. We might do a review anytime between that time. And if it does not happen within that time, I think we'll have a channel on Matrix. We used to have it there by Slack. Help me find this person. So yeah, I think we don't have it right now on Matrix, but yeah, we're gonna bring it back. So what you do is just you tag that person and you be like, hey guys, just let me find this person. They're missing for a review. And if you still can't reach that person, then this is something that you can escalate to performance, and then we'll handle it from there. But yeah, it starts with patience. Just wait for the person. They might be experiencing a bit of difficulty or something might be holding them back. Okay, sweet.
Yes. Okay, Quinn asks, on the review on the curriculum, it was advised that we can start small, or rather less complicated version of the card game, like numbers only and such. When doing the review, am I looking at the full Uno game, or am I looking at the basics as in it's working? Um, so the way that I've structured the questions on that review form is sort of like, hey, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? So if you've got just a small simplified thing, um, hopefully there's still a couple questions on there that you can tick yes to. And in the case that there's some stuff that works, but you still have to say no to every question, there's a free form text input at the bottom where you can just say, hey, this thing and this thing and this thing were working. Um, so um, the point of the review is not necessarily that every no is like a point deducted or anything like that. We're going to be doing reviews again for this project to keep tabs on what people have changed and how their project has improved over the coming days. The idea is just to sort of see where you're at and which features you chose to implement and whether you had success. So yeah, hopefully the structure of the questions that I put in the form mean you'll be able to look at everything that works in the project and give them their flowers for everything that works. Cool. Okay. Um, some folks are talking about like coding specifics and like not being able to find really high quality resources and stuff. Matrix me. I am very happy to info dump at you. I have so many resources. Um, please, I am available.
Okay, Fen, can I add something as we await some questions?
Absolutely.
Um, so a lot of us have been the within code through the within code process. Okay, it's very hard. It's very tough. It demands a lot from you. But in hindsight, it's actually quite um, a fun experience. As you go through it, sometimes you might be like, "This is not fun," but then over time, you get to realize how fruitful it actually is. Okay. So I know for a beginner, you were thrown with an Uno project and you were like, "Ooh, what in the hell is this?" Okay, it gets very overwhelming. The time spans are very short. It's a week or 2 weeks or whatever period that you're given, and nothing makes sense. You're looking at the next person right next to you, and they are coding away. Keyboards, understanding, very easy. Everything is smooth. They're just totally fine. And for you, it might get overwhelming, right? It might not be everyone, but then sometimes it does happen, right? We understand, okay? We get it, right? Be patient with yourself, okay? You are going to need to be very patient with yourself. Um, as much as we want you to hit the ground running, at the same time, we understand that it's very unrealistic for you to just hit the ground running like that, right? Um, it's a long process. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a marathon. Um, as a person, you should be looking for small improvements every time. Okay. This is where you're seeing where you're lacking, right? You're seeing like, okay, I did not understand this. I did not understand this. I did not understand this. Your job from here is to be like, okay, cool. I need to find the next best person to help me understand. And this is where the embodiment of that peer-to-peer learning environment comes in, where I can go to Fen and be like, hey, Fen, I tried to do the Uno project. I could do a few things, but for the most part, I just could not. Could we please find time to help? And then Fen will be like, okay, cool, let's find time, schedule a time, and then let's help. Let's see how we can learn, right? It's a marathon. You will not understand and know everything all at once, okay? Uh, of course, it seems as like the world's going to be against you with all these projects, but trust me, you will be just fine, all right? Um, and with that, please be nice to each other. It's a learning process for everyone. Just treat each other and embody that spirit of Ubuntu and just peer-to-peer learning. All right. That's what we think all actually thrives on. Okay. Um, but just to supplement that, if you find yourself struggling and things just start getting overwhelming and you have reached out to the peers around you and you have possibly reached out to your mentor and you feel like the assistance is not enough and things are just not making sense. And would be your best opportunity to reach out to the performance team, and then we will gladly help you. All right. Um, with that, we will have workshops. Sometimes we'll have like these kinds of workshops that, like in a Zoom call, that everyone will just hop in and then you can ask questions, or we provide clarity with some of the concepts that you might not understand, and Fen will also just hop on there. Um, but then sometimes you may be like, hey, I see that you're doing these good things, but it's not making sense for me. I can't, yeah, nothing is digesting. And we can also even go to an extent of having one-on-ones if need be, right? Um, so please be patient, uh, but also there are structures to help you out. Okay, you start with people around you, you escalate to your mentors. The mentors are there to help you. And if nothing is making sense, escalate it to SP. Student performance, SP, student performance. Yeah, we will gladly help you. Cool.
Cool. So there's two questions. Um, Little Hung asks, for the review, should we just submit parts of the project with the code that work, or should we include the code we are still trying out? Now, that question is not actually about reviews. That's a Git question. I'm not asking you to use Git differently than how you normally use it for the sake of the review. Um, so I think I tend a little bit towards pushing more stuff more often. Um, I think it's good to have the code you're working on in Git so that people can look at Git to see what you're doing. Um, it's going to be more useful for your reviewer if they have more information about what your thought processes are and were, and everything you tried and maybe it didn't work. Maybe they saw how to make it work and they can just give you the thing you need to figure it out, right? So more stuff and get more Git activity is usually better. That said, if you really don't want, like if you're feeling really unsure about a particular direction and you don't know if that's going to work, but you still want to put it in Git, then maybe you can use a branch. So Git branching is maybe something that you could have a look at. It's a little bit advanced, a little. Um, it's also totally reasonable to just keep it simple for now. Um, but yeah. The next question. Uh, it is a bit confusing that in the induction we are told not to think about writing bad code, but already expected to write their code in best practice. So this is referring to one of the questions on the review form. It asks, did the student write the code according to a popular code style like PEP 8? Um, so PEP 8 is a best practice for like formatting Python code and stuff like that. Um, I'll walk you through my rationale for including that question. I would like to acknowledge people that went over and above the expectations. So my expectation of you is that most of the answers on that review form are going to be no, right? I don't expect any of you to, at this point, have a complete Uno game with all the best practices and everything, and your code is perfect. That's unreasonable. Most of you are beginner programmers, right? Um, when I say that this affects your score, I just mean that we're looking at this. If you don't have anything submitted at all, of course, that's a performance concern for us. It doesn't mean that this review form is somehow a rubric and that you need to get every single question on the review form to get 100% or whatever. That's not the right way to think about it. Um, it's more like if you've got a couple of things working, we're happy. Um, but it is important that you do have a few things working. It's important that you did attempt this project because we can teach you a lot of things, but we can't teach you to care. Um, it's very important that you bring that to the table yourself. Um, to answer the question, you are not expected to write code in the best practice. I just want to be aware of the students that did because I want to celebrate them for their achievement. That's all. Um, I think that also answers this other question here. Um, completion, maybe not, but I want to see that you are engaged with the project. Um, cool.
Okay. Fen, one last thing. Before we close off, um, I think just to emphasize, okay, just to emphasize, at this point in time, as you guys start, don't get me wrong, there's a certain portion where we're like, okay, cool, we need some data, so we're gonna be collecting your guys' scores and what and all of that, right? But then I think Fen mentioned this, but I'm just going to reiterate what Fen said. Please don't let that be your main focus point. That, hey, I have a score. I need to get a score. I have a score. I need to get a score. No, please. Okay. It's all about learning. All right. Trust me, the course will get tough. It'll get hectic. All right. If you have missed the learning opportunity at this point as you start, the basics, the fundamentals, because you wanted to scores, and then Riaz goes to Fonda and like Fonda, I need code, I need to get the perfect score. Sometimes it happens. We've seen it happen. That's where plagiarism comes in, and that's where people are just like, because I need a perfect score, I'm just going to take the next person's code, and then they're just going to have it there, and then they're going to present it as their work, right? And that becomes exposed. We've seen it too many times, right? Please use this as an opportunity. See the gaps where you're lacking. Try to fix there and there. Escalate if you're lacking, so that we can fill in the gaps of you not understanding here and there. We will help you. Again, you are here for the next 16 months. Okay, you are here for the next 16 months. Our job is to make sure that you guys are in tip-top shape to get placed, correct? And to be the best coders that could be hired. So please don't have the score thing as your main driving point as you actually approach these things. It's a learning opportunity. You have people around you to help you learn. Please use that. Use that every time. Let that be a driving force, right? And if you are someone who's good and like, hey, I'm finding this a bit easier, I'm able to finish quicker, I understand, feel free to host a workshop. Help the people right next to you and be like, hey, I can see that you're lacking with something. Let's see how we can actually fix this, right? This is nothing new. It's not starting with you. This has been the culture around Within Code for many, many, many years, right? So this is something that we would just want to pass down to you guys, and please just implement that for us, right? And there's like, okay, cool. Thank you for the chance. You're welcome. Wanda. Um, okay, Fen, any last
Yeah.
parting words before we adjourn?
Said another way, um, with everything you do at Rethink Code, your priority should be the things that you can take with you. You will not take your score with you into the industry. What you will take is the social skills that you built, and the programming skills that you built, and the confidence that you have in creating things that never existed. Um, Programming is amazing, and I think it's a gift that we get to participate in it. Please let this be front of mind for you for this 16 months. Um, it is very important that you realize these projects, they're cool and all, but they don't matter, and the scores don't matter. What matters is you and how you grow as a person and the things that you take with you afterwards, okay? I think we can wrap up. I'm going to send all of you that form so that you can get started, see who you're allocated to review. Again, I would really appreciate it if you could have these done today or tomorrow. And please enjoy.
Oh, one last one. For those who are struggling to do the work at this point, how many people do we have, friend, who have submitted the work and are ready for reviews? Okay, what's the number?
I believe it was 229 individuals.
And those who hadn't, what's that number?
It was something like 180.
Yeah, that's still a high number. So maybe people are struggling. Please, if you're struggling to do something, I don't know, please reach out in time. Right? Because yeah, because we are currently at the review process. So the fact that that number is still quite high, it shouldn't be that high, but cool.
Okay, we had one last minute question. Yes, you'll be able to view the document multiple times. Don't worry about that. Um, cool. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your attention. I'll get back to you with the thing. Thank you. Cheers and enjoy.
Thank you, Sam.